Welcome to the show, everyone. My guest today is Ryan McKenzie. So Ryan and I met about 7 or 8 years ago, I want to say, through mutual contacts in Vancouver. I think the first time we probably actually met was down at a digital marketer conference down in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. And we kind of joked about it today that we had this amazing group of people that would get together at these conferences that were all from Vancouver. And then we hardly ever saw each other in Vancouver, which was quite ironic. But, you know, in the last 5 years or so, Ryan actually had an office very close to mine in Burnaby, which is just outside of Vancouver. And we used to go for lunches at Earl's and just hang out and just talk. And I just always really enjoyed our conversations. And we kind of referenced it on the interview here today. We talked a bit about masterminds and about, you know, finding your tribe and walking into a room or being surrounded by people where you feel normal for the first time. And, you know, Ryan spoke very honestly, vulnerably about some of the, you know, personal struggles that he's even had along the way with anxiety as an entrepreneur and just the, you know, for lack of a better term, the addictive nature of true entrepreneurship, where you just live it, eat it, breathe it all the time. And then ultimately how that shifted and changed over the years of before he had kids to now having kids, and what comes up for him in when we talk about that, right? Because actually just bringing it to the surface a lot of times allows for self-reflection of am I present enough with my kids? Am I being the example that I want to for them so that they can go off and be curious and you know, follow their dreams and all that kind of stuff, knowing that our kids look at us so intensely and they mirror who we are, right? Not necessarily what we say, but who we are. So that was part of the conversation. And then the other piece too is that, you know, and I say this as a byproduct, which is an incredible byproduct, but Ryan created this company along with his partners called Tru.Earth. And it started out as an idea and an investment in a patent. Essentially, it's these little strips of laundry detergent that come in a tiny little box and massively reduce the amount of waste that's being put into our landfills in the form of plastic and all of that kind of stuff. And he spoke about the vision behind the why of why did he decide to jump into that business? Because there was risk associated with it, obviously. He spoke about that as well, knowing that at any point, one of the big companies of the world in the laundry detergent space could come in and just wipe them out. And he talked about why he ultimately took that leap. And, you know, it wasn't just a financial risk analysis. It was also rooted in the world that he wanted to see and the world that he wanted to leave behind for his kids. And it's just really, it was such an insightful conversation. I think anybody who is an entrepreneur, who aspires to be an entrepreneur and wonders what that journey looks like, especially from the perspective of somebody like Ryan, and I think you'll know what I mean when you meet him, that has an addictive personality, like I said, that has this obsessive personality where when he goes in, he goes all in and he goes and finds his mentor and he invests the money to make it happen. And, you know, when we talked about when it finally clicked for TruEarth and they saw this ding, 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 all these sales coming in, the average person might go, oh shit, now what? Ryan gets energy from it. He's that kind of guy. He's wired like that. And there's lots of other people out there like that. Not everybody, but if you're like that, if you're somebody that's thinking oh man, yeah, that would I could put my skills to work now that this thing is taken off. I think you're going to really enjoy learning about Ryan's story and just the heartfelt perspective that he's coming from with regards to, I don't want to say finding balance in life, but ultimately just owning who you are and leaning all the way in and loving every minute of it, knowing that it's a crazy, crazy journey. It really is. So let's go ahead and give this episode a listen. All right, Ryan McKenzie, what's happening, my friend? It's been way too long.
Yeah, I think the last time I actually saw you was at the monster trucks with our kids.
Oh, man. That was at least 3 years ago, probably, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Matt Astafan and Tyler Basu.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pre-pandemic when you could jam 50,000 people in a building full of monster trucks.
No doubt. Yeah, I remember those photos. Our kids were much younger, and actually on that note too, I was reflecting on my notes here too. And since that time, we've each had another kid and we named them both Bodie, and neither one of us called each other to do that, did we?
No, it was just that was total some sort of Buddhist fluke.
Yeah, it's a serendipitous moment. I remember that chat actually on Facebook. I could go back into Messenger, and I think I maybe said it out loud first, and you're like, "What? You named a kid Bodhi? That's amazing, man. Me too." There was some deeper meaning there somewhere, but yeah, man. But I and again on my notes, I was just reflecting. I was like, what do I want to talk about with Ryan? Because there's so many different things. But I remember our lunches at Earl's, and they were just so fun. It was just chatting about business and life and everything in between. And I was actually just remembering today because, dude, I did 100 burpees 2 days ago on a challenge, and every ounce of my body hurts right now. And I remember back then too, where you were telling me about how you had hired this coach remotely. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy, like a remote coach via Zoom. Like, this was obviously all pre what we're dealing with right now. But I've always admired that about you, man. Like, when you commit to something, you go all in, like you invest in yourself, your time, your money, everything in between. So, I was looking forward to talking with you, man, and just kind of resurrecting those conversations again and getting the update from you.
I could use some burpees right now because I've gone full in on dad bod right now. Yeah. Cholesterol could probably use some work too. Yeah.
Well, hey, we go through cycles, right? No different than entrepreneurship and business and everything in between. But it was a wake up call for me 2 days ago too, because when the challenge came out, it was a part of this challenge group that I joined, and they basically said you got two options here. One is you can do a cold plunge for 3 to 5 minutes, or you can do 100 burpees. Lean into the one that feels more resistant right now. And I don't know if you've ever done cold plunging before, but I bought a tank, like a horse trough essentially, and threw it on my deck just before Christmas. And I've gone in like 18 times now, I think. And now I'm up to like 14 minutes in it. So it's quite easy and really enjoyable. I love it. But burpees. Is it worse than a cold shower? Because I always get started and I just can't keep myself in. Yeah, it isn't though. Like, it's different, like there was people actually that did the challenge where they were in Ontario and every lake is frozen and nobody's got a horse trough on their deck like I do. But so they went and jumped in the snowbank, and like, that's totally worse too, right? Because it's like centralized cold on a very specific part of your body. The cold plunging, it shocks the hell out of you, but at some point though too, within 30 seconds to 60 seconds, you just start to calm down, and your whole body kind of goes numb. But it is very different than the cold shower because it's everywhere, right? It's not like splashes of water type thing. Yeah, because the cold shower, like, once you've gone through it, like, you feel pretty good after. I find, even like, I'll be a big pussy, and I'll like do like the reverse boiling frog, where I'll like slowly turn the water down, and like I find that's tolerable. I don't know if it has as much impact on your vagus nerve and actually the benefits, but that's about the only way that I can consistently do it. But and by consistently I mean like once a year. Yeah. Well, I'll send you over my suggested buying list of the 150-gallon horse trough. And then I upgraded as well and got the de-icer because we had some seriously cold weather in Kelowna here over the holidays, and it froze solid, like 2-inch block of ice. So it's like $220. You're set, man. Just throw it in the backyard and you're good to go. So just gotta get my wife on board with that, I'm sure. Yeah, well, or just do it for yourself. Just do it for yourself. Tell her it's a swimming pool. I'll hide it around the house and pretend like it's not there. Yeah, tell her it's a swimming pool. It's for the kids, right? But yeah, to that point though, too, like I say, I didn't have any agenda coming into the conversation, but I knew that I wanted to talk to you about a handful of things. One is just the evolution of your business, which has completely shifted in what you're doing and your focus. And I didn't know that until about 10 minutes ago when we first started chatting. TruEarth, obviously, incredible, just seeing it from the outside in. I'm seeing the ads. I'm seeing like the cool, quote unquote viral videos you guys are creating, and ultimately just seeing the impact that it's creating as well. I pulled up a couple of Facebook and LinkedIn posts that you put out recently about winning some awards and stuff, about, second fastest growing startup in Canada. And when I mentioned TruEarth to other people, like even neighbors and stuff, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that. And then now we're seeing it in London Drugs, and obviously it has a bigger impact than just like building a company and making a bunch of money. It has like an actual foundational root to it that's really inspiring too. So, but man, where do I even start with you? There's just so much stuff. I want you to talk about, and you know what? Let's talk about TruEarth. Let's start there, and then maybe we'll jump back into some things. But like, what's that journey been like for you, man? Because it's only been like a couple of years, right? When you started it, how'd you even come up with the idea? And then maybe tell everybody about the evolution of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're about 34 months in at this point, and
okay.
we've had about, I don't know, I think we're close to 650,000 total customers have purchased from us at this point, at least, from direct to consumer and the Amazon perspective. But it's funny, a lot of when before this all started, and this was kind of around the time before, I think your Bodhi was fairly new and my Bodhi was still in the womb, and fairly new father. Like our older kids are pretty similar in age, and like there's like so. As an entrepreneur or whatever, in prior to having kids, I was always like, yeah, whatever happens in the world, I'll just deal with it. I just got to roll with the punches, and that's life, right?
Yeah.
And then after having kids, you start your perspective on things like drastically changes. And like I was getting all sorts of these new anxieties that I had never had before, like, fear of overpopulation, fear of like climate change and where are they going to live when they grow up? Is AI going to take their jobs? Like, and I wouldn't call myself a futurist, like with that label, but I spend a lot of time thinking about the future. And I was getting really anxious. I was talking to Kevin about it all the time, and my business partner, Kevin, which but the audience doesn't. This opportunity had popped up initially to Brad, who's our CEO, and it was basically a family friend had invested in this patent, and he's like, "Hey, I have this. We have these laundry strips, which if you're watching, got on screen.
There you go.
They wash your clothes.
Yep. Oh shoot! You know what? I got them upstairs. I meant to bring them down and show them on the camera too, but I got them in the house, man.
Yeah. I got plenty here. So they brought this up, and they're like, "You guys could do like the Dollar Shave Club of laundry," and like. What was kind of weird that was happening at the same time is we were juggling all these other businesses that were like subscription boxes and media platforms, magazines.
I remember that.
And I was also going through this phase in my head where whenever I would get close to being burnt out, it would always be like, what is this all for? Like, why, like this, am I just pursuing money? Like I'm passionate about outdoor adventure stuff, or at least I was prior to having kids.
Yep.
But like, a lot of the things were more tied to marketing and it's great even when you're working on something that you have passion for, like, to be out there doing it. But like when you have too many balls in the air and you eventually get to this point, like if you lose your mind and go crazy, like I often do, like what is this all for? And especially when it comes down to money, like I had other opportunities for jobs and stuff that paid fairly well that didn't involve all the stuff that you take home. And, I probably could have been, well, maybe not me, but most people would probably be happy just, getting paid and not having a ton of risk.
Yeah.
And this opportunity presented itself. And at first I'm like, there's no way that we're going to be able to compete with, first of all, I don't think the strip's going to work. And then second of all, there's no way that we can compete on such an inexpensive item in today's climate, as well as like if the big boys, the big giants of the industry want to come and stomp on us,
right.
It's game over. And so we kicked it around for a while. And one day I was like having a shower and I had a couple of ideas about, environmental stuff, and then came upstairs and my kids and I were watching YouTube, and they're watching this unboxing show, and they opened this like treasure chest, and it was like made of plastic and wrapped in plastic, and had all these dopamine bomb toys inside that were plastic toys.
Dude, kids are like garbage bags with those shows, hey?
Oh, it's so bad. And I looked at all the plastic at the end, and I'm totally done virtue signaling. Like I feel like I'm complaining to everybody about the future. Like, and I didn't have one specific thing. And I was like looking at the plastic, and I'm like, it's friggin' plastic. That's where I could potentially have impact. So we did some research and found that the numbers were like staggering, how many plastic jugs get thrown in landfills and can't be recycled every year. And a few months later, we launched the product, and And we were like, okay, well, if we've had this conversation before. We have this process. We call it VLOS. It's like validate, launch, optimize, scale. In the validate and early launch phase, if we don't hit the number that we write out, we pack it in, and we're like 150. We got to sell 150 of these products, and if we do, then we'll carry on. And we sold more than 1,500 in the first month. So,
wow.
Fast forward to now, 34 months later, and 640,000 customers. It's been a journey.
No doubts. And it's because you've been in the entrepreneurial world and a marketer and stuff for years and years, and prior to having kids, had multiple things going on, right? There was always something new. Like every time I talk to you, you're like, yeah, we got this box thing, and we got a warehouse over here. And oh, by the way, we have this media company also. And did you know that we have this software? And I was like, dude, how do you keep track of all these things? But, to hear the purpose and the why behind it, and then ultimately know what you're getting into though, too, because it's a startup still too, right? Like there's still a lot of elements to, starting from something from scratch and getting those first round of orders. Did you ever see that? I'm sure you've seen this before. Did you ever see that old UPS commercial where all the people are hovered around a computer and they're like selling t-shirts or whatever?
Go.
Yeah.
Click go or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're looking and they're like, there's a little clicker. It's like click. It's like, all right, 10. It's like, oh, and 100. Like, yeah. And then it just starts going and they're like, oh shit. Now what? Like it's a great storytelling commercial. And actually it speaks well to kind of how you guys have evolved this too, because you've taken something that had a personal attachment to it, and you've wrapped and I don't even want to call it a marketer brain. It's just literally a storytelling brain. Somebody that can actually extract the meaning behind it, or the thing that would get people to rally behind it, because ultimately, like you say, all of those other factors stacked up against you sounds crazy. Like, how could you compete, right? One big name in this space catches on, potentially, unless you build a brand and you build your own little niche. They can come in and wipe you out at any time. And it takes a certain kind of person to even just leap into that void. Maybe speak about that too, like your experience up to that point where you're like, yeah, let's do this. And has it always been kind of natural for you? And what do you think some of the characteristics have made you successful on all of these things too? And have they all been successful too? I guess maybe even share some of that.
Yeah. I mean, not everything's been successful, right? Like it's that saying, it's like overnight success, 20 years in the making, or whatever trite version of that you want to choose from, right? Like we started out with like a media company, and then we went into affiliate marketing, and then we were doing SEO, and like had an SEO agency, and then we built this startup that people could contribute content to, and they would get paid, and then Google slapped the shit out of us. And then, and then we got into into media. And like, it's funny, like I tell this story, but I'm missing out on the parts where like, I had to go and get a job in 2009. I had to sell cell phones for one of the larger carriers in Canada. And I was embarrassed, like super embarrassed. But I eventually like week 2 in, they sent me to like their sales training. And I'm like, okay, Ryan, here's the deal. You can either, just do this to make the money, or what can you learn from this? Like, can you let's learn how to do sales? Because originally I was just like telling people all the features of the phones, right? Yeah. And I sucked it all up. And, it's funny, I'll just give you a quick anecdotal story here, but like when I was working there, nobody liked doing the repairs, and the salespeople had to do process the repairs. And what I eventually found was that a lot of the people that were coming in with their broken phone, instead of looking at them like a nightmare, I started looking at them as an opportunity to get them on a new contract. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the second year that I worked there, and I was only working 20 hours a week. I think I had the second highest sales numbers in British Columbia, and I was only working half time. And I'm not saying I'm a fantastic salesperson. I'm just saying that I found a lot of that has to do with me finding something that other people didn't want to do and is uncomfortable and generally sucks, because you also have to, people don't come in happy with a broken phone. Totally. So making them, trying to, transfer their negative energy into like empathy, and then working with them to figure out a solution that has them with a phone that day. And, that what I did eventually, there was a bit of a loophole that eventually got plugged, where the cell phone price is about too expensive in order for me to kind of do wiggle room with promos. But that's just an example of trying. My personality type is like, I feel like everything, there's like an edge or like some sort of like competitive advantage you can get on just about anything if you dig hard enough and you talk to the right people and you get coached by the right people. And they don't always last forever, but I just have that, like, it's always in the back of my mind. Like everything that I get into, like, I know there's another level that people don't know about, and it's probably a fallacy, but I almost always find one.
Yeah. Well, and that's, to me, I'm just going to make a note about it so I remind myself of something else, but it's the curiosity, I think, of trying to find innovative ways to solve problems, knowing that ultimately in marketing, that is the foundational element, right? Like, yeah, you're selling these little strips. Great. Go sell that based on features, right? But you ground it in like, well, what's the problem and what's the pain it's creating? And then ultimately, what is the path to the solution to be able to narrow the gap? And that's kind of marketing 101, right? So doing that, and then also just being curious, and this is where I was saying at the start that I've admired how you've the approach that you've always taken, because you and I think originally met going to, because we were in Vancouver, but we would go to the same conferences. We went to Digital Marketer and had a lot of fun nights hanging out in penthouses and just being crazy. And shout out to Charles Bird on that one. We always like to give him a hard time. But I think what I've admired about you though is that you've went seeking solutions to problems, not by just trying to dig in and figure it all out yourself, but rather going, you know what, I think somebody's probably solved this already before. And one of the people that comes to mind was ad skills. What's Justin?
Oh, Justin Brooks. Yeah.
I remember you telling me about him, and I have his book here somewhere too, but he was just one example of one of those things. Like I remember you saying like, I found this guy and he was a mentor, and I've just kind of dove in, and then you just immerse yourself in the thing. You get really good at it. And then I would imagine now, like, and maybe I'm wrong, but are you in the trenches on everything that you do there, or you've had to naturally expand probably and build a team around you, I'm guessing? For TruEarth, right?
Yeah. Like, I do miss being in the trenches a lot of it, but yeah, we've got a tremendous team now. Like we've got like our director of marketing, Kyle, he came from Johnson & Johnson. We've got media buyers. We've got marketing ops. We've got social media people. We've got, copywriters. We have a proper marketing team. And I get to work more on the business, which, is for me, that's kind of like my challenge right now, is becoming better at being a leader, better at the skills required to be, in that spot. And I am like far from amazing at this point. It's a opportunity for growth. Kind of like you choosing to do the 100 burpees. There's a lot of times where I'm like, this is not the thing that is my favorite thing to do, but it's necessary for the business. I think like you mentioned that, like, I go and I seek out the things that are that help me improve whatever it is that I'm looking to do. And I just like to kind of counter that with like, and I'm not trying to knock myself down, but I'm also extremely imbalanced. I'm not a balanced human being. Like, I walk by garbage on the floor and I don't see it. And my wife thinks that I'm, being an ass. And the fact is that because of the way that I think about stuff and get obsessed with things and like constantly in my own head, I don't notice things sometimes. And like, I could be a better dad. I could be a better husband. I could be a better friend. There's a whole bunch of things that I probably should improve in my life. And, just everybody's got their own set of issues, and I'm trying to become more balanced. I've been trying for a long time. I'm aware of what are my personal limitations. And, for me, it's how do I become better at those things while also letting myself do the things that I like doing in my head,
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of, like Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about the idea of like double down on your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses. Right. And I think there's a bit of a flaw to that, just in the context of what we're even talking about of like, yeah, absolutely. Like do the thing that you love and that you're, really exceptional at, but then also push into those painful areas, the areas where you feel struggle, that type of thing, because a lot of times the growth happens there. And then I'm curious to know too, so like you stepping into more of a leadership role now where you're less in the trenches and kind of managing the ad campaigns and just doing all the stuff that I know you're like freaking amazing at, man. Where have you turned to for guidance on that side of things? And I know Brad's awesome. Like he's exceptional as that kind of person. I think that's where he's really gained a lot. And you know what? Yeah, I do have his book here. Just hold on. Just wait, I got to take my headset off. But I want to show this just because it's a great example of like, one of your partners right here, right? Clear the mind for success. Learning meditation for business, Mr. Brad Liskey, right there.
Go buy it on Amazon. But I mean, Brad's obviously been a tremendous like mentor. Even like hiring, like Kyle, he's our director of marketing now, and he's got his MBA, like Ivy League caliber, and he's there's a lot of things that he does and he's familiar with that I'm not familiar. So we have a really good relationship where we're teaching each other the like complementary skills. Because it's funny, when I was originally going to hire somebody for director of marketing, I was looking for somebody that actually almost like mimicked my skills. And it was like a last minute pause, and like, you don't need more of you. I mean, I don't think anybody needs more of me, but maybe they do. I don't know. But
you can never get enough of you, man.
But
humor
we need somebody. We need people that complement each other. And if you just have a bunch of clones, you're not really getting you're not getting different insights. You're not like, and so Kyle's filled a lot of gaps there, and I've learned a lot from him. But where else? I'm in masterminds. I'm in Ezra Firestone's mastermind. He's a great leader. Picking up some stuff from him and his team. But yeah, other than that, man, like it's just trying to buckle down and do the work. And I actually like listen to a heck of a lot less books than I used to. When I do, I'm like reading or listening to more fiction than I used to. Which is funny because the whole entrepreneurial hustle starter kit says read a book a week. And, and
totally.
I think I guess it depends, and I'm totally tangenting here, but it really depends, I think, where you are in your life or your business. And Naval Rakhtafan, I think is his name, he mentioned a pretty interesting way to consume information. And it's when you're trying to learn something or build a framework, he seeks out books that can fill the gaps in his framework. And he doesn't read the whole book. He'll just go and isolate the part of the book that talks about the portion of his framework that he hasn't quite identified yet. And he'll use different books to fill that framework. So I mean, most books, half of it, like especially business books, half of it's like the story of the person who wrote it. And then, there's like, so.
Yeah, the unique methodologies buried on page 250, and you could have just jumped to it kind of thing, or watched the video.
Yeah, totally. And I think like whatever you're currently struggling with, that's great. Go and dig into that and read the whole book, a bunch of books on that. But like, I think there's like this stigma that you need to read one book a week. And the problem with that is that you're bouncing from topic to topic, and some of the authors don't necessarily agree with each other. So you're like building half frameworks and models, and you're putting more information into your brain. And if you're struggling with anything at any given point, in my opinion, you're better off like getting that out of your head, figuring out why you're struggling with it, identifying the problem, identifying a potential solution, and that might be through reading a book, and then like get that out of your head, because it's like, I know everybody's different, but I get overwhelmed, and I get so overwhelmed that I'm like getting like almost like sick. Yeah. And I start feeling depressed. And like over and over and over and over and over again, the only thing that I found that solves it is to literally write down all the things and then break them into what can I do in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and what is a bigger project. And as soon as I knock off some of those like 15-minute things that are just like piling up, it's like it all goes away. And sorry, this again, longest tangent, but
no,
the same thing goes. You figure out the first part to solving a problem or dealing with personal stress is to identify what's causing that problem and then isolating it and dealing with it.
No, there's a lot of good insight in everything that you shared there. Like what is one of the best ways to become a better leader? Well, surround yourself with leaders, don't just try and become the next of everything. Just bring them into your world and let them do what they do best. And a lot of times, and I think you just had a good self-reflection on that though too, is that we want to find clones of ourselves. Every time I've led in a company, I've felt the same way too, right? I'm thinking like, man, I got to find entrepreneurial thinking people that just want to be outside the box and go the extra mile. And then you realize as you build a company that like, you can't just have, 20 Ryans or 20 Trevors or else everybody's just doing their own damn thing. And like, I joke around about it all the time. You could probably relate to this, but when I describe what I do, even when I'm in a company, because as you know, I sold my business. So I became a part of a larger group and then I took on an executive role. And eventually I hit a point where I was like, man, I got to go back to just kind of floating on my cloud for a little bit here. And that's literally how I referenced it. It's like, I just want to go kind of do my own thing. It's no offense. I don't not like you. I just know I need the next thing. I'm seeking the next evolution of me and my growth. And a lot of times when I dive into that, it's very similar process to what you're saying, which is to just go, all right, back it up. Where's the gap? Where's the thing that I'm feeling that I need to fill that void? And it might not even be for long. It might just be for a couple of months or just a fleeting moments or whatever. But I know for me as an entrepreneur, I feel like it's been a learned process. I get energy from that and I get anxiety for the opposite side of that. Like you were saying, like if I stay in something for too long and I kind of lose the drive for it, like I've learned enough now to be self-aware to go, okay, it's time to pivot. Even if it's painful financially, even if it's whatever the case might be, I just have to trust that I'm going to go the right direction. And then I need to surround myself with other people that can say, yeah, that's normal. Me too. Like that was a huge one for me, man, over the years. And is that part of the reason why you join masterminds and stuff too? Is like, I always reference it as like, man, in certain masterminds, I felt like I was normal for the first time in my life. Whereas in my own head, I was like, dude, you're freaking crazy. What are you doing?
Yeah. I think the first time that I ever remember like being somewhere and being like, oh my God, like I'm home. It was literally, I think in San Diego, at one of those traffic and conversions, and it was like hanging out with all the people that are all doing the same thing. And most of us were from Vancouver, which is funny because we all met up in San Diego. Yeah. But like I can remember sitting there and being like, man, this is like, and the crazy part when I go to those things is I barely sleep. Like, and I'm not like doing anything that's going to keep me awake. I just don't want to go to bed. Yeah. But like, the mastermind thing, the way that we kind of look at it, and Brad's kind of put this in a little bit more eloquently, is that there's like when you're trying to take on something new that you don't know, basically it's like climbing a mountain, and in the side of the mountain there's a learning pit, and you can get through the learning pit one of two ways. You can either go into the pit and you can figure out how to climb out of it. This one time it might be sand and your flip flops aren't going to work, and you need different kinds of shoes. And then another time it might be mud and you need something different, like snowshoes. And you can either go in there and take the time to learn and figure out how to get out of it yourself through trial and error, or you can find somebody that's already gone through the pit, either had somebody else help them or learn the hard way, and get them to show you how to do it, because it's essentially, it's a shortcut or a cheat code. And the best part about masterminds, especially the good ones, is that people are there to raise each other up. It's not about like competition or egos. And everybody's going through different stuff, and everybody wants to help other people get up because it helps bring them up. And that's the one thing that I've noticed, is that the more I give, the more it comes back to me when I'm in a situation where I don't know how to figure something out. Yeah. And masterminds are made, if you've got to find a good one, and it has to be related to what you're in, but like the people like Ezra's masterminds, phenomenal. Like it's e-commerce, so it's not going to be for everybody, but like the relationships that I built inside of there have, like, whatever it's cost me to be in it, have been like 1,000-fold. Yeah. I'd actually love to
I want to share something and then dig a little deeper too and get your perspective on this to see if you align with it or if you've had a different experience. But I was actually speaking to a friend of mine the other day who started Pila, which I'm sure you're familiar with as well, right? Like Pila case and all that. Yep. So my buddy Jeremy started that company. I think we talked about this before, but
yeah. So I'm friends with Matt. Yeah, you're friends with Jeremy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Jeremy, to fast forward through his journey, he had a crazy, big, hairy, audacious goal. I remember him telling it to me in Saskatoon in like 2008. And I was like, cool. And like when I interviewed him a few months ago, he actually said to me, he's like, dude, like I remember back then, like you were the only person that looked at me and listened to me and said, that sounds freaking awesome, man. Because everybody else thought I was nuts, And then, years went by and he was in the trenches and him and his wife were handwriting notes to every person that bought a Pila case on the kitchen table through holidays and all that stuff. Like that was the real story. And when he was down to his last $10,000 because he was all in on this thing, he actually signed up for MMT, Mastermind Talks, with Jason Gaynor and those guys, right? And he talks about how he went to that mastermind and the first day he walked in the room and he was feeling such anxiety. And then he got back to the room and he was just like emotionally like drained and crying and called his wife. And he's like, what am I doing here? Like I'm in the wrong place. And she actually talked him off the shelf and said, no, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Go meet some people, just be yourself. And he ended up meeting Matt there and as well as another guy, I can't remember his name now, but Brad, right? Brad. Yeah. So, and between the three of them, they went and built this company as well, too, which is doing incredibly well and has a very similar kind of foundational why behind it, about the plastic waste and just changing the world in some small way that creates a big impact. How was your experience with that? Because I know what you've gone through and you've even alluded to it already, the idea of like having anxiety and feeling like and saying out loud that like, look, I got entrepreneur ADD and I acknowledge it. Like this is who I am. Have you experienced that as well? Or what's it been like for you walking into those rooms?
What you just said about Jeremy, it's funny because I've been to tons of different conferences and even like, it's always the first time when you don't really know anybody and you're going in there. If you're not primed with the right mindset. Like I went to social media marketing world 15, which is the second time that I'd been to it. And I got there and I went with somebody and he was one of the speakers and he wound up going and hanging out with some of the other speakers. And I went out the first night and hung out with some people and met some people and I had an all right time. But the next day I woke up in the morning and I'm like, I don't really want to be here. Like, it was like, I don't know if I felt like I didn't fit in or, what it was. And I wound up finishing the trip and having a good time. I found some other people, but like, even the first time that I went to, like Ezra's mastermind, I didn't know anybody. And like coming up in the first time you talk to somebody, you don't know what you're getting into. And the first conversation is always the hardest. But I'm personally not somebody that like, I don't love going to like cold networking events where I know nobody. Like it's just, I usually wind up finding 4 or 5 people and I make a deeper relationship with them versus like, even
trying to work the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even at like, digital marketers event, like, we all wound up hanging out in a big group and that just like, other people want to join in the group and we want to bouncing around from party to party, but we always have our little group and, maybe that's my security blanket. I don't know, but like I guess what it comes down to is it's kind of like a limiting self-limiting belief that, you're going to walk in there and people aren't going to like you, or I don't even know what it is. But as soon as you get past that uncomfortable step, like the what's on the other side of that and like finding similar people is amazing. And to your point about like Jeremy and you find people encouraging you, what's difficult with entrepreneurship is that most people are not entrepreneurs. Like 99% of people in your family, unless you have like an entrepreneurial family, are not entrepreneurs. So they're going to give you their advice through their lens. It doesn't mean it's bad advice. It means it's good advice from their perspective. Different perspective. And their risk profile could be different than yours. Their understanding of the market could be different than yours. There's so many things that they may not have perspective on unless they've lived it. So, those are some of the invaluable things that you get from being connected to other people. I mean, whether they're higher than you or lower than you, obviously you're going to get a mix of that, but getting perspective from people that actually are living the life is going to be probably more valuable. You could probably bookend it with everyday people just to kind of like pressure test things. But sometimes the best idea is like, I bet you if you asked 99 out of 100 people that weren't marketers if I should get in the laundry detergent, I bet you maybe even 100, maybe everybody would have said no.
Yeah.
And just so when we pushed the button, like the go button on that commercial you were talking about, I pushed the go button and it didn't just start doing that ding, 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 ding thing. I actually sent a text message to somebody that I met when I was selling cell phones at Bell. Her name is Melinda. And I said, hey, check out this new thing we're launching. And I didn't ask her to buy it. She bought it. She was customer number one. And that she was it for day one. And day two, something happened. And all of a sudden the Facebook ads and the Google ads started firing. And then it started doing the ding, 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 ding thing. And my ADD turned into like hyper obsession, OCD focus. And, so, all good things don't start necessarily with the button and it just rips, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the last piece you just said there, though, is that, you spent a lot of time preparing for a moment like that, and your personality and your addictive nature or your anxiety or whatever you want to call all of these things, they kind of culminate into that moment. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, I'll link it up in the show notes, this UPS commercial, because you'll get it right away. You're just like, but the people in that commercial, I remember, like, you see the fear in their face. And what I'm hearing from you is you probably went, yes. Now I can do what I do best, like I got a little bit of little traction here, and then you can go squeeze out that 10 years of experience of highs and lows and everything in between, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a gift, like, and a lot of times I think people might look at that maybe as a detriment or something that might hold them back, but right circumstance, right time, right place, perfect every time.
Yeah, it's like all the other things that you do leading up to when an opportunity presents itself. That's like playing in the farm league. That's like in the NHL. That's like playing in the AHL. When the opportunity comes for you to go up and play a game in the NHL, that's when you need to take everything that you've learned and leave it all on the ice and demonstrate that you deserve to be here. Yeah. So that's the way I look at it. Everything that we had done up until that point was basically practice in the farm league. And if I didn't go through all of those highs and lows, we would never have been able to capitalize on the opportunity when it presented itself.
And that's real too, like there's probably, you don't hear about those stories, but there's probably a lot of businesses that hit that point where it was like ding, ding, ding. And then they didn't have a clue or just the straight up guts to go, all right, let's go, like double down. Let's 10x the ad spend. Let's do this. Let's hire 30 people, because that takes a level of confidence and experience too, to just pull the trigger or whatever, stupidity, whatever you want to call it. Right. But a lot of
Forrest Gumpisms. I often I refer to myself as Forrest Gump. I don't think I'm necessarily the smartest person in the room, but I think I'm just dumb enough to not know when to not listen or not listen to. I don't have the little voice saying it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Yeah. It sounds like the perfect quotable for this interview right here. I'll make sure to extract that one out of there. Yeah. The other thing that comes to mind here too, and because I mentioned I wanted to talk about parenthood and being a dad and stuff too, because it's just a piece of what I'm constantly exploring myself too, of just always wanting to be a better version of myself, be an example for my kids, not tell them what to do, show them what to do, that type of thing. And when you're growing a business like this, naturally it tugs at you, right? Like it's going to demand a lot of your time, your attention, that type of thing. And then you have the state of the world in the last 2 years, which I'm sure has had a strain on the business. Maybe not. Maybe it's actually accelerated it. But what has it been like being a dad through all of this stuff too, with your kids and just navigating that whole world and the restrictions and the mandates and all of that? I'll just kind of open it up to that and see what comes to mind for you.
Yeah, man. I think for the longest time, the first 3-4 years of my kid's life, I had I would have like guilt that I wasn't present enough or I wasn't being a good enough dad. And I don't know if every dad gets this, but I think probably quite a few do.
A lot of the ones that I talk to do.
You know, and it's funny because my dad, I have a great dad, and I don't really have a reason to feel like I need to, I don't have like a chip on my shoulder to like be like, oh, my dad didn't pay attention to me or whatever, right? So I don't really know where it comes from, but I know that especially, you know, I'm on my phone a lot at night. I'm not as bad as I used to be, I don't think, but I used to feel really bad about being present when I was at home. And I used to carry a lot of that weight. And I've gone through a few evolutions, and there's at one point where I made this thing called minutes that every day the kids get like 15 to 20 minutes each one independently, where they get to pick what we do for that period. And, which wound up taking a lot of time as it went on because they always wanted to do it. And the problem with that, it was fantastic because I would do the things that they wanted to do and I would feel connected with them and I would feel like they got some attention from me. But it became, they liked it so much that we like couldn't go to a movie or we couldn't make plans to do something because they had to have their minutes. So yeah, it seemed like a great idea in the beginning, and I did it for probably a year, but it became an obsessive thing of the kids. So, you know, we kind of moved away from that, but it did make me feel really good when we were doing it. If you have one kid, I think it's probably a great idea. But alternatively, I think if I was to do it again, I would probably block it off in my calendar that we're going to hang out and you get to pick what we play, and not give it to them where they get the control, like that they know that it's something that happens daily. That was one thing that worked well for me. And I know lots of people do that where they block time with their kids. But I think the other thing that's tough for dads, especially, is like, we're not quite as wired, and I'm totally doing a blanket statement here, but like a lot of the stuff that happens when kids are really little, we're not like, it's not genetically wired into us to like love, like, you know, playing these little games. And my brain has a tendency to go off and start thinking about something else. So even if I'm not on my phone, I'll be there and I'm just being a shitty play partner, right? But what I've noticed as the kids get a bit older, like Josh, for instance, he's my oldest kid, he's 7. He's been playing hockey, never really liked it. And then just this last week, he wanted to start shooting pucks so that he could get better at shooting off the ground. Yep. And we've been going down and shooting pucks at the cement wall in my backyard, which is covered in dirt now, but every day. And he's like, can we go play hockey? We go play hockey. And what I'm really starting to enjoy is like identifying the things that they want to be good at and then trying to spend time with them on those things, instead of like just trying to jam any old, like it's kind of almost like Montessori school, right? Like trying to figure out what they like and then spending, even if it's 10 minutes, man, kids just need to feel like you care and that they want to be, they want some attention from you, tied to what they want to talk about or think about. And I think we probably overthink what it is, but honestly, I'm just rambling here. I feel like I've gotten better as a whole at disconnecting my obsessive thought patterns from during the day to when I get home. And like, I used to be really good at it if I could go to the gym before I went home, but the pandemic's kind of put some weird bullets in that one. But parenting's hard. You know, I don't think there's no manual for it, and every kid's different and they all have different needs. And I'm just, you know, I would love to have a little bit more free time to do what they want, but right now it's just trying to give them some quality time so that they don't like resent me or, you know, because it goes fast. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that, because every answer's perfect. And it's also an opportunity for reflection. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this as well, is to like pick up on pieces of what you're saying and see areas of how I'm showing up or not, and where can I make some shifts there. But I just think about like values and stuff too. I know I did some work with Dr. Nima Rahmani in Vancouver there too, where I was reflecting on values. And when you put as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we're all wired the same. Like you and I are very similar, you know, and anybody that's listening and hearing our stories and stuff, they're going to be like, oh man, like some people are going to be like, that's me too. And to just acknowledge it and to know that maybe your highest value is your career/business, and then second is family. I know when I went through an exercise on that, that was the order when I first had my kids. And I felt so much guilt over it, man. And then I, worked through it and then actually shifted the story and the perspective on it of like, look, if I show up fully committed and so passionate to something and actually see it through and create financial abundance and just true love of something, and my kids see that, that's serving them, Now, that's not to say that you should obsessively do that and never give your kids any time. Everything's all in balance, like all things in life. But it allowed me to just kind of look at it through a different lens, Instead of the guilt, I was like, no, I'm just consciously aware of it now. And therefore, I'm not going to beat myself up when I'm, doing the thing that I love, because that's ultimately, I think, all we want for our kids too, is you just referenced it, They say, I want to shoot pucks. Hell yes, let's go shoot pucks. If they said, I want to play guitar, or I want to dance, or whatever it is, it's all the same. Just,
I feel like too, like tied to that, it's like leading by example, right? And I feel like part of the reason my son didn't really like hockey is because I wasn't playing hockey. He couldn't see me play. And you can see that leading by example in the end. I'm going to go back to NHL again. Like, look how many players are children of people that played in the NHL. Like, yes, they have an unfair advantage that their dad can teach them how to play hockey, but they're also watching their dad play hockey on TV. They're watching their dad play TV in the stands. They want to be like their dad. And if you're the dad that's always looking at your phone when you're at home and you're not having a conversation with your kids, and they're not like, it's one thing to see you working, but if you're just like not actively present when you're physically there, they're going to think that, hey, dad does it. That's pretty cool. Let's just like chill on our iPads and be a vegetable, right? Like, you have to find a way to demonstrate how to exist. And what's the best way to, or not the best way to do it, but the way that you've chosen. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Garrett Gunderson before? Are you familiar with him? Wealth Factory. I think his
I've heard of Wealth Factory.
Yeah. So he's done talks and stuff mostly around the financial side of things, but he ended up doing this kind of off the wall talk at, I think it was Genius Network, Joe Polish.
Yep.
And he was speaking about marriage and his relationship with his wife and his family and all that kind of stuff, which was a total 180 from what he usually talked about. And he even actually uncomfortably said at the start, he's like, I've never talked about this before. I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth. But what he ended up doing as somebody like us was he started to just create rules around what he was committed to doing. And like one of them was a quarterly retreat with his wife, non-negotiable, like in the calendar, 2-3 days away at a hotel, away from the kids, And then he had these numbers to it. It was like 67 and 6 or whatever it was, but it was like every 7 days or 7 days a quarter you spend time by yourself, without the family, without your wife, like me time, whatever that looks like, playing hockey, going on a trip, whatever. And then 6 o'clock for him, he said 6 o'clock, all technology turned off. And then they worked it into their routine, knowing that like he knew who he was. If he didn't create structure around all of those things, none of them would happen because they just constantly get pushed back and there'd always be something else, And that one really grounded for me. I'm actually looking at a whiteboard here right now because my Shar and I went in November on our first quarterly retreat and did literally nothing, like watched the new James Bond movie and slept and ate. Well, we're going again in February, and now it's starting to become a bit of a routine, and eventually it'll be a habit, and then we won't even think twice. Just like, hey, when's the retreat? When are we going away again?
That's awesome. And
we had to do that, though, to wire it into our brains so that we didn't just be reactive, because we knew that we'd always find something else to be busy with because we're constantly seeking and we're trying new things, and we just made it work for us. And that's been super helpful for what it's worth.
You know what? I think that's something that I could take away from this, and like, I find that if I don't schedule time for things, then it never happens.
Yeah. I'll send you that link to that video. I think you'd enjoy watching it. How are we doing for time here? I got a last set of questions to ask you. You good for another 6-7 minutes?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right. So I always end off these interviews with the same questions. Then that way I get the perspective of every single person that comes in, and I can go back and, this is my marketer brain going like, geez, I can go back and mash these all together. But I refer to this as the power of one lightning round. Now, you don't have to answer with one-word answers. Feel free to elaborate, but it's all kind of around this theme of one. All right. So first question is, who is one person or mentor that you believe has been the most influential in your life all time? So you can go right back to childhood if you want.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say my parents, just as a combo. They weren't together after I was about 14, but they didn't ever tell me I couldn't do something. And I think not having that limitation placed on me probably gave me an opportunity to go and, explore what I wanted.
Cool. Love it. Next question. Who is one person or mentor that you feel is the most influential in your life right now? So in this moment.
I'll probably go with Brad. I mean, he's driving a lot of the leadership for our business, and that's my main focus. Mr. Brad, yeah. He'll probably be excited to hear that.
Available on Amazon, everybody.
Available on Amazon.
I'll link it
I don't think he does coaching or anything like that, but he's taken the reins on a lot of things that operationally and from a leadership perspective that I probably wouldn't have had as many opportunities if he didn't kind of steer the ship.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think of Jeremy in the context of Matt's and his Brad on the Pila side too. He referenced it as like Jeremy's the heart, Matt's the brains, and Brad was the muscle. So they just had this kind of 3-pronged approach. And I see, I'm not sure which one's the heart and the brains and the muscle in your guys' dynamic, but I definitely see like Brad has such a different just experience and background and vibe. Like you guys are very different people, but you complement each other very well.
Very, very specific skill sets. And we kind of stick in our own lanes, and we're kind of much greater as a sum than independently.
All right. Next question. What is one philanthropic cause that means the most to you, and why?
If I was to I organized something about 10 years ago. It's called Hack Your Hair for Huntington's disease. I haven't done it since, but my sister passed away from Huntington's about 8 years ago. And we raised quite a bit of money for a number of different things with TruEarth. We raised some money with a past startup as well. But, when she passed away in her sleep. And before she passed away, she said that she wanted her brain to be donated to science to have, sorry, making me tear up a bit, so that she could try to help other people. And, sorry.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, no, I know. It's, but she's only here for 18 years, but she basically gave her life and to be able to, she existed so that people could work towards finding a cure for other people. And, this kind of just brings me back to thinking that I need to do more to kind of help that cause. But that would be where I would probably lean if I was to lean into something outside of what we're already doing.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful, man. Whenever I ask people that question, a wide range of feedback comes back. Some people say, geez, I don't really give my money to anything. And then the next person says, yeah, I don't give my money to anything because the work that I do, actually, I feel is my philanthropic work. And that was the immediate place that I thought that you might go to, right? Because like what you're doing is actually reducing plastic waste, and therefore it's helping save the world. But it obviously brought up something completely different, which is perfect. It came in at exactly the right time for whatever.
Yeah. And the other thing too, like if I was to, I just came to my mind is like stuff to do with kids, man. Like I do donate to Children's Hospital. Mm-hmm. Their program's aggressive. I don't like that part about it, but, I feel for especially kids that don't have people, and obviously childhood illnesses and stuff like that. But I feel like there's so many unjust things that happen to kids.
There's one of my donations as well.
My sister, that's where my sister was when she passed, was at Canuck Place. So they're a fantastic organization, and I'm grateful that you contribute to them because they're if oh man, so many great things. I donate to Connect Place. They're amazing.
Yep. And Children's Hospital too. Those are the two that we actually give our money to as well. And I actually held a story for a long time that I didn't, and it wasn't even true at all. It was like, I don't have enough money to create a lot of impact. Like if I'm going to give money, I'm going to give money, you know? And somebody actually just framed it for me at one point. It's like, just set up the $50 auto payments and, you know, it's a step in the right direction. Imagine if, you know, 100 people did that, the impact that would make.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, man, it does. So I'm glad we got to say that one out loud too.
Yeah.
All right. Couple more questions for you here. What is one thing you are most grateful for right now?
The health of my children, my family.
It's a good one in today's day and age. 100%. What is one thing you are most curious about right now and looking to explore and discover more about?
I don't really want to be the cliche crypto guy, but all the DeFi stuff, you know, unfortunately, it checks a lot of the dopamine boxes in my brain. But it's interesting to me. I don't know. I don't necessarily think I'm going to go down the rabbit hole, but it's like one of the, and like economics as a whole, it sounds like the nerdiest topic ever, but kind of tied to my whole future, the way that I think, you know, very future focused. Economics and where, you know, where things are going with, the economy and what's going to be the future of fiat. And I don't know. That's kind of got me not for I'm being greedy reasons, but just the whole futurism side of it is fascinating to me.
Yeah, we're very aligned on that one because it's like just what impact will it have in everything, including our kids and education and how knowledge is transferred and rewarded for that matter, right? Like the whole foundation of the blockchain and stuff of like, if you are the original source of creation for something that you're actually compensated in perpetuity. Like when I first heard that, I was like, oh, I get it. This shit's a game changer. Now, by when, you know, are we going to feel this now in a month, 10 years? Who knows? But
yeah,
I'm pretty obsessively curious over that too.
I'll talk about it sometime.
Well, that's it. I was just going to say, I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you because I know how you operate. And when I get down that path where I'm like, hey, dude, you got any courses I should take or books I should read? Like, I'm sure you'll be the person to answer that question. All right. Last question for you, man, is what is one thing that scares you right now that you know you need to meet with bravery?
I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole economics side of things. I'm pretty concerned about the future of, finance. Like, I feel like we're in this like hyperinflation environment. This is what I'm scared of. I'm scared of hyperinflation. I'm scared that the amount of money that's being printed is like devaluing. Like, I mean, essentially, like if you're printing this much money and the government's also selling bonds at a certain fixed percentage, if you go and double the amount of money in circulation, you'd effectively cut your promise to the person in half. You still get the same percentage of money, but you're not getting the same percentage of value. And I think I'm concerned about these debt cycles, and I don't know. I spend a lot of time considering that thought and trying to think like, what are the solutions to this? Like how do you go about it? And, you know, nobody has that answer, but, it sounds like a really dry, boring thing to think about, but it's, you know, like it's tied to things like, okay, I've got my money for my kids saved for college or whatever it is. Like, is that going to be even close to the same value? Like, you know, you go and you get 5% or that's being like ridiculous. If you're getting 3% on some bonds and inflation's listed at 6%, then it's actually, you know, double that or triple that. Like, am I better off just spending the money and like, or, you know, just, and that doesn't concern me as much for me, because again, like I said before, I feel like I'm good at getting through these types of things, but there's lots of people in this world who are going to be in a potential really bad spot if this doesn't get resolved.
Yep. That's a great one. And it's something that I think about a lot too, and constantly contemplate how I can be a part of the solution, knowing that the big picture is daunting. Like, how do you even put a dent in that answer to that question, But what I think of too is, what we hear in the news is 4.5 million people a month losing their jobs or quitting their jobs in the United States. 4.5 million a month,
It's insane.
Yeah, and some of those people are just bouncing from company to company that's adapting and allowing them to work remotely or whatever it is, maybe it was a blessing. Some people are diving into business and entrepreneurship, and we know, like, the majority of this conversation was, I think, centered around like, hey, this is a crazy ass space to be in, and you got to be a little crazy to actually thrive in this space, and or go surround yourself with really good people that complement your weaknesses. But there's a lot of people that are going to suffer through this too. And that's what I think about, is how do you support every one of those types of people, through this whole disruption that's happening, because that's what it is. It's just a massive disruption. And I think we're just at the start of it.
Oh, I mean, you look at Vancouver just as a prime example. Like, it's not only expensive to purchase a house here; it's it's insane. It's nuts. But then it's not a supply and it's not an inflated market, because the rent there's no vacancy to rent. So there's this insane demand here that makes it almost unlivable, which is bizarre, because considering that so many jobs are remote now, and you're seeing it pretty much everywhere in at least in Canada, the same behavior. So I don't know how people I just don't understand how it just doesn't. The math doesn't add up to me, and I just don't think that it. I don't know how it could be sustainable.
Yeah. Well, maybe you guys should just move down to Costa Rica with us or Panama, and that's got its own challenges too. Like inflation and rising costs and gentrification of different areas around the world. Because, like, when you actually, like, in my space, and I know you're in the same kind of thing, but for me, I work with a lot of business owners, supporting them on the marketing side of things as like a fractional CMO and multiple other things. But so many people I talk to are not just talking about moving outside of Vancouver or wherever it is. They're doing it, and they're already there. Like, a lot of them are already there, and it's Mexico, it's Panama, it's Central America, South America, Asia, Southeast Asia. And they're not even hesitating, because they can buy 3,000 square foot beautiful houses with ocean views and pools for a third of what they can get in their local market, and they can work remotely. And Elon Musk's putting satellites up in the air that allows you to work in a jungle.
Yeah.
Like, the world's changing. And
it's crazy.
And it's going to be a mess before it gets blissful again. But I think it's pretty freaking awesome though too. And I feel very adaptable to the whole situation. And part of it is because I know guys like you. So just acknowledgement to you, man. Like, it's been too long since we've actually hopped on and done a chat. I look forward to the next one again. Let's make sure it's not so long in between this time, but it's so cool to see what you guys got going on, and just everything that you're doing, your commitment to be the best version of yourself, man. Just really appreciate you doing this with me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate having me on the show.
Yeah. So how can people find out more about you and TruEarth and all that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, you could, I'm not like, I don't have like a .com for myself or anything like that, but you could find me on
personal
LinkedIn
brand for Ryan McKenzie.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I think the people that know me. I've considered it, but yeah, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there. I don't talk too much on LinkedIn, but if you send me a message on Facebook, I pretty much answer anybody that messages me. And yeah, TruEarth. You can find TruEarth at tru.earth.
There we go.
There's no .com. It's tru.earth if you want to try it out. But no pressure. No pressure.
Cool. Yeah. Well, like I say, we got it. It's upstairs. I wish I would have brought the box down here, but I'm looking forward to testing it out. And obviously you can get it in, in stores as well too. It's not just an online brand anymore, but cool, man. Well, thanks so much again for doing this, and we'll have to talk again real soon here.
All right, man. Thanks, Trevor. See ya.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Trevor Turnbull Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please consider subscribing on my YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast platform, and leave me a review. I'd love to hear from you. Now, until next time, remember, today is a beautiful day of opportunity. Trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. So be grateful, be curious, and be brave.